Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unfound Live for May 20th, 2024. Hope everybody had a great week. I hope everybody had a great weekend. If you need something to live for, remember this upcoming weekend for many people is a 3-day weekend. Remember, next Monday is Memorial Day, which means down here at the beach, we will be jam-packed with people for sure. I don't know what I'll be doing. I don't know if I'll be out on the beach or anything like that. I don't have any tournaments scheduled this weekend. We'll just have to see. But that is coming up this weekend if you need something to look forward to. And I'm going to get into a little bit of my week here in a bit. But what do I have lined up for you tonight on this show? I want to talk a little bit. While I was doing some Unfound work today, I watched the movie Bernie, which starred Jack Black. This is based on a true story of a guy who killed a woman and it was made into a movie. I want to talk about a very little, don't think very well-known unsolved murder from the Atlanta area. The victim, her name is Kelsey Quail. And I kind of she was on my mind given that we featured Brianna Maitland's disappearance last week. I want to talk about, I didn't get to it last week. Hopefully I'll get to it this week. A story that was written about missing persons, the problem they're having with missing persons cases in the United Kingdom. I want to write about, I want to talk about, what else do I want to talk about here? I want to answer a couple questions from Jeff and Glenn. And if anybody else has any questions they'd like for me to answer tonight, I can do that. As it says in the title for this live show tonight, I want to talk a little bit about psychics. I've not devoted a lot of time to psychics here on the live show in a while. And as you know, psychics, the topic of psychics, the topic is persona non grata in any interview that I do. Even if it comes up, it ends up getting edited out. And I want to talk a little bit about common sense regarding missing persons cases. I got a lot to cover tonight, is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying I got a lot to cover tonight, and I'm going to try to get to all of it. Please don't hold it against me if I don't. As we are going through this show tonight over the next couple of hours, I hope you will give this show a thumbs up. You can do that if you're watching on YouTube. And, of course, this is also playing on Facebook and Twitter for anybody who wants to comment on those apps. Do what you can to make sure everybody knows how great this live show is on either of those social media locations as well. And you can see right there along the bottom of the screen tonight, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. If you'd like to support, you get some things over there that you don't get for free. It's behind a paywall, but it's just a little paywall. It's not a very, very high paywall. Of course, there are different levels, but just entry level is a very, very short wall. So you should think about that. Patreon.com/Unfound Podcast, or the other way, you can support this podcast. And what we do here is by hitting the join button there on YouTube. So let's see who is in here so far tonight. And then I will get into just this wild week that I had. And then we will get into all the true crime stuff for tonight. Hello, Nephew Charles. What's going on with you? Hello, Karen. Hello, Lisa. What's going on? Deborah, good to see you. Yeah, your last name does come up there, Deborah. How about that? Hello, Glenn. Going to get to a couple of your questions tonight before we are all done. And Jasmine, Kathy, good to see you. Hazel, coming to us from, where is it, Hazel? New Zealand? Is that right? Yeah, I know you're not an American. Sometimes I forget these things. Please forgive me. But it's good to see you tonight, Hazel and Valerie. Good to see all of you. Thank you for all tuning in tonight. And please, if you are watching tonight, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, please post something in the comments. Let me know that you are out there somewhere. So I want to start just with a couple personal items that occurred since last Monday. On Wednesday, of course, Wednesday now is trivia day. It used to be for many years. It was Thursdays for like ever. And then it got moved back to Wednesdays. Good thing I moved this live show from Wednesdays to Mondays, right? It's funny how that worked out. And my trivia team came in second. And I got to be honest, we should have won. We were leading halfway through, kind of tripped to the finish line, to be honest. And so we lost by a couple points, missed at least one question that I think we should have gotten, probably more than one. But we came in second. But in the overall standings for this quarter, which will go, I think, to the end of June, like we're like 100 some points ahead of everybody, which it sounds like it is. It's quite a bit. I think that we have like 924 points, and the next nearest team has like 814. And the most points that you can get, I think every night, every Wednesday night, if you answer every question correct and bet all of your points at the end, I think the most points you get is 196. So we're leading by over half of what you can even get in one night, which is a considerable lead. Whereas all the other teams are pretty much stacked. They're with like in 10 points of each other, something like that. We're like 100 some points ahead. So we're doing real well there, and we will be rewarded with that if we can keep that up to the end. But anything can happen. If we don't get if we miss the final question this coming week or this coming Wednesday, we get 0 and a lot of teams get it right, then of course it's all back to anybody's game. But trivia, really like it. Played over there at Finley's. Now, it was Fat Cats until Fat Cats went out of business. And now we're at Finley's Irish Pub. They have really good service there, really good food there, reasonable prices, nice place. And I think we're enjoying the new venue. The only issue is that, if you get in the top 3, get your seat table reserved. If you don't, you have to get there at like 4:30. And the trivia doesn't start till 7. It's that busy. They get like 25 teams, 120 people. It's like a big thing. So that's maybe the only thing about it. As long as we keep finishing in the top 3, we don't have to worry about getting a table. But if for some reason we don't get there, then one of us has to show up at like 4:30 and sit there for 2.5 hours, as I've done myself. So there's that. Let's see here. Let's see some people chiming in. Hello, Amy 007. Are you really James Bond, Amy? Amy coming to San Diego. I've been to San Diego a couple times, Amy. I was down there, used to go down there for work that I had in Las Vegas. I would drive to LA and then go down there from LA down to San Diego and did some work down there. I once did this big circle where I went from Las Vegas to LA to San Diego, then over to Phoenix, and then back up to Las Vegas. That was quite a trip for the work that I was doing. Very interesting part of the United States. So San Diego, and yeah, I'm English, but here in New Zealand. All right, I got that right, Hazel. I'm glad I got that right. New Zealand. So it's already well into Tuesday down there. And Olden is saying, yeah, caught alive from the beginning. Good for you, Olden. I'm happy about it, too. Mary Lee listening from another SoCal listener. We got Amy in San Diego and Mary Lee in Southern California somewhere. And Olden, thank you for gifting a podcast channel membership, the YouTube channel, to somebody. Olden, thank you so much. You are very generous. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. And that is a trek. And you are 007. I knew it. I knew it, Amy. Yeah, that is a trek. It was quite a trip. It was like a couple-day trip where I was moving computer equipment, printing equipment, picking some up, dropping some off. It was a job I used to have. That would have been around 2008, something like that, Amy. And then another Southern California person, Cinnamon, coming in from Victorville. I know that area well, driving from Las Vegas down to LA, going by Victorville. Victorville, like one of the last stops before you start down the El Cajon Pass. Know that area very well. And hello to you, everything. So thank you. Tucson, been there too. I worked on a stunt show in Tucson, Arizona back in early 2000, like 24 years ago. I can't believe that. I worked on I was called, man, I can't even remember what the TV show was called, but I was a production assistant on this stunt show that played on like the WB network or something like that back then. So I've been to Tucson. Unfortunately, what happened in Tucson is a stuntman got killed. I wasn't there when it happened, but a stuntman got killed during the taping of the show down in Tucson. And so they stopped filming and everybody went home. So that's what I remember about Tucson. Yeah, a few of us. Yeah, Kathy, I know you're from Southern California as well. There you go. Okay. A lot of Southern California people tonight here. That is interesting. Very interesting to me. Okay. So the other thing that went on since last week is I almost died on a disc golf course. Of course, I'm exaggerating. But on Friday, of course, the episode came out as it should at 2 p.m. But somewhere in the afternoon, as I started writing the Patreon blog, which you can find at patreon.com/unfound podcast, you can find my deeper inner thoughts on the disappearance of Brianna Maitland. Out of note, you ever get one of those sore throats where you swallow once and you're fine, and then the next swallow hurts? That happened to me on Friday afternoon. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And it didn't really get any worse, but it was just consistent for the rest of the day. And it was really weird. It wasn't like down here. It was more like on the roof, like the back roof of my throat, like where your nasal passage is. Really strange. And I woke up on Saturday morning not feeling too great, but I really, really wanted to play in this disc golf tournament that was right near me that I'd signed up for, that was playing on this ball golf course on Thursday. Went over and practiced and everything. And I was like, I really want to play, so I'm going to go play. And I was doing pretty well through the first half of the first round, but I hit the wall. I started really getting sick. The sore throat was worse. It was still like I said, in the upper region, like back here, like forward of back here. It wasn't like down in here. And then I also had a whole bunch of sinus stuff going on in here, a sinus headache and everything. And I just hit the wall and my play just completely collapsed. But still, I didn't want to give up because that was playing the long tees. I wanted to play the short tees at least in the second round. And so I decided to stick around, and I just played as badly as I've ever played. No energy. And now looking at my symptoms, I have to admit, I barely made it through the round. I was this close to quitting. And in fact, I now know that I had heat exhaustion out there. Because you ever get out there, you're in hot weather, and you get goosebumps on your arms? Have any of you ever had that happen? I had that for the entire second round. And you go look, you Google it. We all, self-diagnose when we can't get to a doctor. If you look that up, that is one of the main signs of heat exhaustion. And I told myself, as long as I can think clearly, I'm staying out here. But I had no energy. No energy. I could throw the disc. I was throwing it pretty much where I wanted, but it wasn't going anywhere. But I made it through the round. But there was a part of me that I was thinking, man, I might just die out in this course today. And it really, I mean, it was hot out. It was 90 and had to be 90% humidity, but it wasn't even sunny, which I think made the humidity worse because there was a kind of a cloud layer going on, which then keeps the heat in. And I had water and everything, but I know for like that second round, I had heat exhaustion the whole time. And so I got home, I took a cold shower, I went to bed. And so I didn't play on Sunday. I think I certainly made myself more sick. Yesterday was still kind of feeling sick, still did the think tank last night. Today, I don't have the sore throat, but I have a lot of Janert. I don't have any sinus issues, necessarily no headache. But man, I got a lot of drainage and things going on. So I don't know. I must have caught something somewhere last week somehow. Maybe at trivia or after trivia. I did go to this late night coffee shop that I go to once in a while, do work, listen to music, and maybe I got it there. I don't know. But man, that was no fun. Like I said, I wasn't sure I was going to make it. Let's see what everybody. So everything is ordered. Greg's book. Thank you for that. Well, I hope you everything. Hopefully you will message me or email me. Let me know what you think of Greg's book. Amy's asking, it was my vocal cords. No, I don't think so. This was certainly high up. This was certainly some sort of virus or something. My sinus headaches, it was all messed up. It was not good. Yeah, okay. Talking about Southern California there. Okay, everything, me too. Bit late. Laura, what's going on with you? Good to see you. Where you been, Laura? Amy says, great episode. Greg, yeah, you did a great interview. Lisa says, sorry to hear that, Ed. Hope you're 100% soon. Yeah, I'm not 100% right now. I'm feeling like 80%. I'm kind of tired. I know after this is done tonight, I never have any problem sleeping, but I'm going to sleep long and hard tonight. There's no doubt in my mind. I can already tell. Great interview. Also, Deborah says, thank you. Hazel. Yeah, I was unwell and, my score certainly showed up. I mean, I finished dead last in intermediate by a lot, and that hasn't happened forever. But it was just because I was sick. And of course, everybody, I mean, most of the guys I'm playing with are like half my age. They were feeling it too. I mean, it was miserable out there. Miserable. And then on top of that, I was certainly sick. So, but I made it through. Shouldn't have probably done it. Probably shouldn't have played at all. And I think if I had not played at all, I'd have probably felt fine by Saturday evening. But because I went out there, exerted myself, all that stuff, that's why it's probably lasted a lot longer than it should have. So, like I said, but I will admit, there was a time when I was sitting there, I had about 5 baskets to go or something like that in that second round, and I'm sitting there, and we're waiting to tee off, and I'm sitting there thinking, I actually, I mean, I felt, there was no aches, no heart issues or anything, but I was thinking, I hope I don't faint out here because that would be damn embarrassing. But I made it. So there you go. Oh, yeah. Okay. So sorry to hear all of that. Big move in the fall from Baltimore to Apollo Beach. Well, Laura, I know where Apollo Beach is. That's right there on the other side of the bay. I've never been over that side of Tampa, but that's a pretty nice area here, Laura. Congratulations on that. Charlie says, pretty rough way to play. Glad you're better. Yeah, it was no fun. And it just kind of put a damper on the whole thing because I really was excited to play in this tournament, and that's kind of why I went. If it had been some course that I play all the time, probably on Saturday morning, I would have backed out. But because this course like is a one-time thing, I felt like I obligated. I got to go check it out, and really made an idiot of myself out there in the way I played. But that happens. So I don't think it's anything other health issue than that. I don't think that I got heat exhaustion because I'm out of shape or anything like that. I was probably only 50% before I even stepped out on the course on Saturday. All right, so let's move on. Let's get to, I'm going to, last week, I didn't get to the questions that people asked until right at the end. And so I don't want to do that. So I'm going to start this off by Glenn has asked me 2 questions and Jeff has asked me 1 question. Once again, if any of you have any questions, please just put them in the comments there, and I'll try to answer it before we're done tonight. And if you don't see Cherie, she already let me know she'll probably not be in here. She's doing some traveling tomorrow, so she has to prepare for that. I said, totally fine, Cherie. Glenn's question that came in a few hours ago. And I've been, this is an interesting time for me to answer this because I have been asked this question a few times over the last couple of years, but I don't know if I've ever publicly, I know some people have emailed me personally, asked me about it. And as you all know, I answer all questions and comments that get sent to me. I think that's a very important part of what I do. But I don't know if I've ever answered this publicly. So here we go. Drainage. Glenn asks, I was curious why Jason Jokowski's mother no longer works with missing persons. I'm curious because it's such a perplexing case, and I understand there are new theories for the case. I definitely would like to revisit everything. Well, it's a couple different things going on there, Glenn. I know that you're watching there tonight. First of all, I think we did revisit Jason Jokowski's disappearance within the last couple of years. I know the Unfound historian, Kathy, might go back and find out when we revisited his disappearance. We did that, by the way, so we could talk about his disappearance in the think tank. Once again, if you'd like to be a member of the think tank, patreon.com/Unfound podcast, right there at the bottom of the screen. So we did revisit it within the last couple of years, Glenn. So we had the original episode that came out, second episode of Unfound's existence. And then just within the last couple of years, you know how once in a while I revisit a disappearance, kind of look of it maybe with new eyes or whatever, new attention. We did do that. But as far as the question is why Jason's mother, Kelly, is not involved with missing persons, I have no idea. There you go, Kathy. Thank you. Jason's revisitation episode came out October 14th, 2022. So like a year and a half ago. Thank you for checking that out, Kathy. Appreciate it. I don't know. I will tell you that not recently, probably not within even the last couple of years, but certainly since I moved into where I live now, so that would be the last 5 years, I have tried contacting her, and it's just nothing. It's nothing. I don't take that personally. I think that that's happening with a lot of people who've tried to contact her over the last so many years since the Project Jason closed up. And the thing is, when was that? Maybe 2018? I mean, it's been a while now. It's been a while. This wasn't just like last year. It seems like it was yesterday that Project Jason, the website, went defunct, but it's been at least 5 years, I think. So I don't know. And nobody's ever even told me. I've never, as you would suspect, I now have many contacts within the missing persons community. And I know some of these people who have known Kelly for way longer than I ever knew her. We have to remember that Jason's disappearance occurred in 2001. And we didn't start Unfound until 2016. So 15 years later. So that was 15 years where a lot of other people could get to know Kelly better than I got to know her. In fact, I'm guessing some of these people that I now know got to meet her in person. I don't think they have any answers either. So I don't know. All I will tell you is that this isn't for everybody. The way she got into it. Now, you should know something. Really, when it comes down to it, and what you hear come out of my mouth and the way I treat these disappearances and everything comes absolutely from that interview, the interview that I did with Kelly way back in 2016. Just in that interview, and even the conversations, of course, that weren't part of the interview, taught me so much about how missing persons cases should be treated and how the guests should be treated. And she taught me a lot about trauma and all these things, of course, psychics and all of that. It was so educational, and I was so fortunate to be able to interview her so early in Unfound's existence. And I would like to think that I've carried that kind of attitude since then to the present. You know me, I have a lot. I guess what I want to say is my opinion is that there are a lot of true crime hosts that should follow Kelly Jolkowski's lead in the way that they handle the topic, and they don't. That's my opinion. That's what I think I know. And so when you know that the way I treat some of these topics and how, as you can see, you're watching live, I'm a very laid back guy in my, my life outside the podcast. But I think you also know that there's not too many people out there that take disappearances, at least the topic, more seriously than I do. And I as Kelly, it's not entertainment. It's something that's serious, and these are real victims, and these are people that you're going to be talking to who have trauma that there are no words to describe it. And I really, really try to keep that in mind. And probably that's one of the reasons that I'm maybe not as critical of some of these guests as many of you are when it comes to, well, they didn't answer that question, and that answer didn't make any sense to me, on and on and on. It's probably, I wouldn't say I'm more lenient. I would just say that their answers make sense to me, maybe better understanding the trauma that they're going through, because this is what I do. That's all I do, is talk to people that have had this occur to them. So this isn't for everyone. And even within that interview that I did with her back then, you remember I kind of did two interviews. I did one just on Jason's disappearance, and then one about Project Jason. In the Project Jason side of it, you can even remember that she talked about how she started this 501c3. I remember this like it was yesterday. And you know how many interviews I've done since then. I remember this part of that interview like it was yesterday. She talked about how she started this 501c3 Project Jason, did all this publicity, did all these media interviews and everything else. And she thought, man, I'm going to go out to the mailbox. I'm going to open it up, and all these donations and everything are just going to be pouring in. I went out there, nothing. And I'm pretty sure that, that's the way it continued through Project Jason's run. And my guess is that, I don't know. But how much, especially consider she is the mother of a missing son. And I realize there are a lot of people out there who are suspicious of her. Well, that disappearance doesn't make any sense. But, how would you feel as the mother of a missing son? You're starting this this 501c3, you're trying to raise money to help people, and nobody wants to send you any money. On top of the fact that you have a son who's missing. I mean, it's bad enough starting a nonprofit organization for some reason and not getting a donations or anything. But imagine doing this because you have a missing son and also not. I mean, how bad is that? How long can you go on living with that? At some point, I think you might think that, man, talk about disrespect or something. Maybe I'm just guessing. Total guessing. And she also might have just thought, you know what? Maybe I've done all I can do. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. Podcasting is out. Some new people have come in here. This Ed Denzel guy, John Lorden, these people who pretty much treat the topic the way it should be done. Maybe it's just time for me to back off and allow these people to do their thing. Very well may be. Because remember, when she started this, podcasting, all that stuff didn't exist. It's very possible. I don't know. I'm just going to keep saying it. I don't know. And I think I was stunned as everybody else was when Project Jason website was up one day and then the next it was gone. So I don't know. Glenn, the preface to this question from Glenn was that, I might not be able to answer this because due to confidentiality. And I answered this question in the group and I'm answering it the same way. On the record or off the record, it doesn't matter. I don't know. And if I knew, I would just say, I know. And really, I can't tell you because I don't know. I don't know what's going on with, she may have health issues. I don't know what's going on in her family. I have no idea. But it probably was, looking back at it now, probably one of the biggest things that, you just didn't quite expect to happen. And why she does, I always got along with her. I think we were in good terms when she got out. Of course, she's still in. Her son's still missing. But as far as running the website and all that, to my knowledge, we were still on good terms when she got out. She hasn't gotten back to me. I just emailed her. I don't think I've ever tried to call her. I don't think. So I don't know. It's a great question, Glenn. You're not the first person who's asked me this. I think this is on the minds of a lot of people. There very well may be there are people who know, people within the missing persons community. Maybe some other podcaster does know. Maybe somebody who runs one of these YouTube channels does know. Maybe the guy who runs Texas EquuSearch or the Class Foundation or whatever else. Maybe there are people at those organizations that do know. I don't know. And it's never been back to me through the grapevine. So that's my answer to that, Glenn. I wish I had more information. Of course, as I would say, I know, once again, I know that there are people out there who are suspicious, especially since it's kind of gotten onto this thing about how the younger brother answered the phone, pretending to be Jason. And could it be something happened at home and they all covered it up and everything else? And that just sounds a little too extraordinary and everything to me. This sounds like Tom Brown all over again, where, he got home and, something happened there. And then his family actually took his body out there and disposed of it. It's like that. It's crazy. So I don't know. Let's see what everybody's saying. I've been going on. Yeah, I was curious if some new theories about Jason's disappearance may have influenced her to leave. Glenn, to me, Kelly would not be one of those to get out because of that. I don't think so. I don't think it's certainly could be because of the entire atmosphere of the true crime community and because it's not serious enough and a lot of it doesn't have the right tone. That certainly could do it. But I don't think it would be anything like that, where she would get out because of something specifically said about her or Jason and everything else. I think she's the type of the person she wouldn't run from a fight like that. However, maybe looking at what's gone on, she might be displeased by how the entire topic is treated by a lot of people. I could see her doing that, but I don't think she would run away from a fight, that was like head on like that. Hazel says, I've only just recently listened to those interviews as I started at the beginning of Unfound. I looked up Project Jason as I wanted to mention her, but found it had gone. Yeah, it's been gone for a while. Yep. Yeah, it took me 2 months to listen to all prior 120 episodes. Hello, Marty. Half hour late. That's about right. Hazel, people with trauma can achieve more if they have a lot of support around them. Without close support, it must be crippling to keep going. Yeah. Like I said, I'll never forget it. She thought, man, I got this great idea. I've endured this. I think I have something to say. I think I can help out their families and everything. She goes out the mailbox, nothing. I remember it like it was yesterday. Everybody's saying hi to Marty. And okay, everybody's saying hi. So that's my answer to that question. The next question I will answer is from Jeff, but I want to get into some of tonight's agenda right now. So let's move on to that. Let's just go right to the Brianna Maitland poll. And as you all know by now, this is a poll that I put in the discussion group. And I simply asked, what do you think happened to Brianna Maitland? This is, did she stage her own disappearance and walk off? Did she get abducted from the Dutchburn house? And I should state, I don't think Greg or I ever did actually say Dutchburn house. I think we just said abandoned house. But if you're ever wondering what's the Dutchburn house, did she get abducted from there? Did she get abducted from somewhere else or some other theory? And I don't think this is maybe any surprise. That majority of the people thought that she got abducted from where her car was, and that was at the Dutchburn house. That's what the discussion group thought. Now, in the think tank, last night, I think we had 9 members in there, and I know that sounds like a small amount. That's the way it is. It's an exclusive group. You can be part of this very exclusive group if you sign up on Patreon. But the think tank was kind of split. We had 6 people who believed that she was abducted, but even within that 6, I think it was 4 at the Dutchburn house and 2 elsewhere. And then there were 3 people who thought that she staged her own disappearance. And for the blog that I write at patreon.com, you should know, as crazy as it sounds, that, and I think that I gave, in my summation, which was a lot longer than usual, I think for obvious reasons, I think that I gave my theory, even though I didn't call it my theory. I just offered up a couple different theories that are out there to this day. One being that she walked off, the pluses and minuses, and also her being abducted from the Dutchburn house, the pluses and minuses. And in fact, I even offered up a third theory at the end, saying that what's possible that maybe this all happened somewhere else, maybe at somebody's house, maybe at the restaurant. It didn't have to have happened at the Dutchburn house, even though her car was there. I brought that up at the end. But I have to tell you, my theory is that she staged it and walked off. I know, crazy. My reasoning is, very quickly, if you really want to read all 3,000 words of the reasoning, you can find it at patreon.com, once again, there at the bottom of the page. But for me, I've learned my lesson about putting stuff into the evidence box that shouldn't be there. I learned, me personally, once again, I'm not trying to be, point at all of you and say, we don't argue about theories at Unfound. I learned my lessons with Crystal Morrison and Esther Westenbarger, where those are two disappearances that I were sure were foul play, and we now know neither of them were foul play. But if you look at them, of course, both of them were solved, so we have the advantage of knowing what happened now. But if you look at those and you don't know that they were solved, it's not crazy to think that both of those were foul play. And of course, that's what I thought, and I think a lot of people thought that. Of course, until they were solved. And for me, looking back at that time, I realized, well, the reason I thought that, first of all, is because I didn't understand disappearance at that point, because I was starting from scratch. And really, it came down to I was putting facts into evidence where there were no facts. I was thinking, well, Crystal Morrison must have called that guy that used to give her drugs, and he showed up and picked her up and took her somewhere. That didn't happen. There were no facts to support that, but I thought it happened anyway. Didn't happen. With Esther Westenbarger, she has a brother who, by all accounts, is not a very good guy. And in fact, her own daughter thought that her uncle, Esther's brother, caused the disappearance. We now know that didn't happen. There were no facts to support that other than him being a bad guy. We now know that she drove into that retention pond all by herself. And so I've tried to learn from that. And I think what we also know regarding disappearances that have been foul play on Unfound is that there were obvious signs that it was foul play. And with Brianna Maitland, there are no obvious signs that it was foul play. All of that could have been done by one person. That is how generally I come to my conclusion on this. So that was, remember, once again, I'm just reminding all of you, we're here to learn. Me too. Biggest mistake I made for a long time. Biggest mistake I see people out there, not just Unfound listeners, but when I go to Web Sleuths and I read articles and other people have covered disappearance that Unfound is going to cover on and on and on and on and on. One of the biggest problems I see is people putting things into the evidence box that is not evidence. It's just feelings. And those don't count. So there you go. Hello, Charlotte. Good to see you tonight, Charlotte. I was a little worried about you when you ducked out of the think tank early last night. I hope you're feeling better tonight. I listened to some true crime live shows where the people are not serious at all. I know, Charlotte. Rockford, I think it's fair to mention what the brother did as long as one acknowledges the obvious problems with the theory that he's the culprit. Oh, regarding back Jason Jolkowski. Okay, Rockford. Marty, I'm really conflicted on whether she was abducted or it was a walk-off. I think, once again, I got no problems with anybody who thinks it was an abduction. Okay, I got no problems. We don't argue theories here. The only thing I wonder is why people think that when there's no evidence of that. If you can show me where there's evidence of that, then okay. In the polls, I'm often torn between two options or just can't say what I think as it's too hard. No one knows what happened. Yeah, if we knew what happened, Hazel, we could just go solve it right now. It's the exact reason I don't argue with other people and I don't laugh at other people's theories. I take things quite literally, so I think about it could be right. I thought abducted somewhere else. Crazy, Ed. Car could have been staged to throw off the investigation. Could have been. Marty, I think it was an abduction. It happened at the house. The problem is I really think the car crash was staged. I don't think there would be enough time to abduct her. Okay. I don't waste time listening to podcasts making light of murder or disappearances. Yeah, Rockford. For me, it comes down to timing. We have two passionate possible perps with violent criminal records who knew the area well. They had a motive. Yeah. Marty, then if she was abducted somewhere else, how is that out of everyone that could have seen the car, ex-boyfriend? I know it's kind of, Marty, we could compare it to Pine Gregory. Of all the people in Hemphill County, what are the odds that Pine Gregory would come across parts, 30% of Tom Brown's remains? What are the odds? But I'm here to tell you, there is not a cell or atom in my body that thinks Pine Gregory had anything to do with Tom Brown's disappearance. These things happen. Charlene, hi, hello, Charlene. What's going on with you? It's now 2:43 a.m. in Ireland, and I wouldn't miss this awesome Unfound live printing. Well, there you are, Charlene. You know, Charlene, I was thinking of all of Ireland's listeners a couple days ago when we had that portal between New York City and Dublin, and it ended up getting X-rated and everything. Did you know about that, Charlene? Marty, I'm more leaning towards maybe the X helped her stage the walk-off rather than abducted her. All right, Marty, you can do that. So there you go. That is the disappearance of Brianna Maitland. As I said, that was a disappearance that I really, we hadn't made an attempt over the last few years to cover it, reaching out to her family. Then out of nowhere, Greg contacted me, and that's how it all happened. So there you go, the disappearance of Brianna Maitland. All right, let's get to a couple news items that I want to cover tonight. This was on my mind. And, you know, I'm always looking for items in pop culture or movies or TV shows or anything like that, novels or whatever, that can better explain my ideas about what I think happens in certain types of disappearances. Because sometimes it's hard to find the right words, whether I'm talking here, or I'm typing them out, or even when I'm going to speak to college students or whoever. Sometimes you just can't phrase. You have this idea in your head, but you can't find. Of course, I only speak English. I can't find the correct English words to accurately describe it. And so I'm always looking for pop culture references or something. I was like, oh, there you go. I don't have to use words. Just look at this. And I told you earlier, starting out tonight, that I happened upon, I have Amazon Prime on my smart TV back there. I also have, what else do I have on the TV? I don't have Netflix, but I have Disney, I have Amazon Prime, and I have Paramount Plus. But on Amazon Prime, you can now watch the movie Bernie for free. And that's a movie. It's a true story of this assistant funeral director, who ended up not having a relationship with her, kind of being an assistant to this rich older woman. And she wasn't well liked by anybody at all, but they became close. But she was known as being very cantankerous. Nobody wanted to be her friend and everything else. And she finally, I guess, pushed this. And you should know Jack Black plays Bernie. It's based on a true story from the 1990s. And Shirley MacLaine, of all people, plays the old woman that she gets murdered. And Matthew McConaughey plays the prosecutor. So they're all playing real people, although, of course, the woman's dead now. But I've said often about how a lot of these types of what we call the man said types of disappearances, the ones that where a guy saying, well, I just don't know what happened to her, or she went out to a white truck and gone in there with a couple guys and was gone. I just don't know what happened. Angela Green's husband, I don't know what happened to her. I took her to a psychiatric hospital, and oh no, she died there. And no, wait a minute. She actually did get picked up by a couple people and got taken away. On and on and on. We've heard, many of you know these stories. What happens in the movie Bernie, which allegedly also happened in real life, is kind of the way I visualize the man said types of disappearances. Now, in the movie, not to give it away, but I'm going to do it anyway. Bernie gets fed up with this woman, even though he's become like her son. She's like changed her will. So if, when she dies, he's going to inherit everything. But she kind of has him. She's very possessive. She doesn't allow him to have any friends and all these things. And he ends up shooting her in the back and killing her. And then for many months, he successfully deflects, oh, well, where is she? Why can't I talk to her? By telling all these different stories. Oh, she's in the hospital. Oh, she went on a trip. Oh, she's sleeping right now. for a long time before her own family, like it was her son, finally came over when Bernie wasn't there at the house and ended up finding his dead, the dead mother in this freezer in the house. And of course, Bernie was charged. There was a trial. He's found guilty, and he's going to be in jail for the rest of his life. But what goes on in that movie and how he finally gets fed up, he just can't take it anymore, is one of the ways I visualize a lot of these kinds of disappearances. Not saying that these guys were right, or I'm not blaming it on the women or anything, but something gets to the point. It's not a planned thing. It's not a logical thing or anything like that. A breaking point. Thank you, Amy. They just get to that point. They can't take it anymore for whatever reason. And it very well may be that if they just allow themselves to walk out of the house, get in the car, take a little drive for an hour, and then come back, that feeling goes away and the woman never goes missing. I really believe that. But in that moment, that's not what the guy chooses to do. Now, granted, in this situation, Bernie shot her in the back. I'm not saying all these, I'm not going to that literal sense. It very well may be some of these women were shot, but it very well could be some of them were strangled or stabbed. They might have, stuck something in their drink or something, causing them to overdose or whatever, a lot of different ways. But this is how I visualize many of these, the man said disappearances happen, that they're not planned, that these men on that particular day don't get up or, thinking that they're going to kill their girlfriend or wife or anything, but it happens. So if you ever see that movie, it's kind of funny. Jack Black is fantastic as usual. And it's a very small, artsy movie. I think it was like a $7 million budget, only made like $10 million or something. It's by Richard Linklater, who is the same guy who directed Jack Black and School of Rock, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. So if you've not seen it, check it out. Like I said, it's on Amazon Prime for free. Might be other places, I don't know. But I guess it's a true crime movie because it's this relationship and then she gets murdered and everybody's wondering, well, what happened to her? And Bernie's telling all these people all these different stories and it goes through the trial. You should check it out. It's worth it. So if you're ever wondering, well, what's Ed talking about? When you see that movie, then you'll be inside my head what I'm visualizing when I talk about the man said type of disappearance. Thanks you for the heads up on Bernie. Yeah, you got to check it out. Marty says, I agree. I don't think Pine Gregory had anything to do with Tom Brown. Okay. Marty says, great movie. You're familiar with it. Amy is also familiar with it. Hazel says, I much watched that movie. Yeah, I think even Hazel, even though you're not an American, I think you'll be able to appreciate it. Yeah, snapped. They snap, right? Cinnamon. Yes. Thank you, Hazel. Very underrated movie, and the real story is insane. It is. Yeah, Charlie says, I'll check it out. You got to check it out. Jack Black, got it. Linklater is one of my all-time favorites. He's a genius. He is, Rockford. I agree. As a big music person, rock person, and everything, and with School of Rock, with teaching kids about music and teaching them rock and roll and everything. I mean, as you can imagine, it's right up my alley. So the Bernie movie. Let's move on to this. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of this murder that occurred back in 2018. And I'm going to talk about it now. It's still unsolved. But it got into my mind covering Brianna Maitland's disappearance last week. And I don't think that I've ever talked about it on the live show. If I did, it had to have been 6 years ago or something, 5 years ago. So I just want to read this. This is a story about this woman who was murdered at 7 a.m. driving to work. Young woman. Her name is Kelsey Quail, K-E-L-S-E-Y, then Quayle, Q-U-A-Y-L-E. It was around 7 a.m. Monday, October 8th, so it would have been in 2018. Folks were starting off their week filing up at a Quick Trip gas station off Upper Riverdale Road in Clayton County. This is, I think, near Atlanta, maybe south of Atlanta. Moments later, gunfire. Police say Kelsey Quail, 28, was driving down the road to work, just 2,000 feet from being there, when the Mazda 626 she was driving started drifting. Suddenly, her car slammed into oncoming cars. Police say she had been shot. They didn't figure this out until they got her to the hospital. They thought that, oh, she fell asleep at the wheel or something. And this, the last thing they're thinking is she got shot. Well, once they got her to the hospital, they thought, oh my gosh, she was shot. And that's why her car drifted over. First responders rushed to the hospital in critical condition, but doctors were unable to save her. Quayle later died. But a week after the aspiring model's death, police say there's still no closer to finding out who pulled the trigger. And you should know there's hardly been anything written about this murder, this unsolved murder, since 2018. I've looked. So it's like cold. We've been up and down the road talking to businesses looking for any information. Police said nothing has come forward to us at this point. Surveillance video from that Quick Trip gas station showed the moments before the bullet hit Quayle. All appeared to be quiet, normal. No signs of a gunman or the danger to come. So there is video out there. You can find it on YouTube. Camera pointed out. And you can see her car go by. And they actually do have video of her car hitting these other cars. They do have that, but it's not public. Police hope that on releasing the surveillance video of the accident scene moments before the crash might help bring forward witnesses or new leads. I guess it is not. But they did have a lead, but I don't know where it went. I'll get into that. Police said Quayle just moved to Atlanta to pursue a modeling career, but their investigation up to this point doesn't seem to indicate she was targeted in any way and that it was just an isolated case. All the evidence says she was traveling on the roadway and someone fired a bullet into the right side of her vehicle. Police said the shooting could be a possible case of road rage, but they'd need witnesses to come forward to help them confirm that theory. They have no suspects. We are willing to talk to anyone who may have information. Two likely candidates: the drivers of a Suzuki XL7, I don't even know what that is, and a Ford Escape that Quayle crashed into. They may have some information to lead to the person who is responsible here. Meanwhile, Quayle's family is trying to understand what happened. She just moved here, so she didn't know anybody. It's just a mystery for all of us. Kaylee said she didn't have any enemies. Kaylee, her sister, said she didn't have any enemies or mentioned anything about a stalker or a person who was bugging her. Nothing. Kaylee said her sister's death has left their family mourning someone who is a light to whoever she came across. Kelsey was the sweetest person. She was the type of person who could brighten up your day with her personality. As police search for more information, Quayle's family started a GoFundMe account to help with her medical expenses, but now the family is working to bring her remains back to California for a funeral. And the way I remember it, they had a vehicle. Of course, what it seems happened, and by the way, there's a well-known unsolved murder here in the Tampa area. The same thing over on the 275, where a guy in a pickup truck, once again, drifted off the road, but didn't go into any cars. He went the other way into like the right side down into the grass. And it turned out he had been shot while driving as well. But they had a vehicle on the video that they've never been able to track down. And what they did, my understanding, once again, there's a lot written about this at the time in 2018, but nothing since. That they even went out there like the next, police went out there like for the next several weeks at that time of the morning looking for this particular vehicle. Because, people get into patterns. People go to work, they come home, go to work, come home. And especially when you're talking about 7 a.m, what is most likely? That this was somebody who lives in that area driving to work and shot her for some reason. The problem is they tried this, and this other vehicle that they think, was it a Suburban or something like that? It wasn't like another car. I think it was a Suburban, like one of those big SUVs, something like that. They never saw it. I think that's the way, I don't have it in my notes, but that's the way I remember it. And so what happens as you see it is that this vehicle is like behind, and then as she's drifting off into the other lane, she's already been shot. This vehicle is like going by her, is already in front of her, very close to her car. So, once she's shot, the car automatically is going to start drifting. So the shot had to have happened like a second before that. So it makes sense that this one vehicle that's right near her car at the time did it. Of course, it could have been a car coming the other way, which I can't imagine the difficulty of that shot. But that vehicle has never been tracked down. Now, there was another lead regarding this, and I'm going somewhere with this because, like I said, it got onto my mind when I was thinking about Brianna Maitland's disappearance. I'm going somewhere. Just hang on for a second. What they were also looking at is around that same area, that same morning. I don't know if it was an hour before or a half hour before she was shot. They had a video of a guy trying to break into a local business. And he's right there on camera. To my knowledge, I've tried to track this down, haven't been able to find anything. This guy, even though his face is on the video, to my knowledge, at least I've been trying to search for it, has never been identified. And so there is the idea out there that, was this just some crazed guy? He can't break into this store or whatever else. So he goes back out to his car, gets out on the road, Kelsey there, and he's just ticked off and shoots her. That's one theory that the police, I think, were working on at the time. I don't know if they're working on that theory anymore. I don't know if they ever identified this guy. I have no idea. But that's really the only working theory that I've seen, outside of just, some random encounter here. Because you would understand, even though we have a lot of cars in the United States and we have a lot of guns in the United States, people getting shot from car to car is really, really rare. Now, of course, there are drive-by shootings and things, but where cars are going down the road and shooting back and forth, fairly rare, or somebody just being shot without having a gun, fairly, really, really, really rare. But the reason this is on my mind regarding this, and it may very well mean, now Kelsey's 28, we know Brianna was 17, so there's an age difference there, but still two young women. Although legally, Brianna's still considered to be underage, so I guess a girl. There's something about Brianna's disappearance I hope you don't forget. Is that, and it's illustrated in Kelsey's murder. It's much easier to murder somebody and leave the body, the car, and everything behind than to abduct somebody and leave a car behind. This is why when people start talking to me, well, with murder stats and things like that, I was like, those are murders. Those don't count. Remember, when it comes to any sort of federal database regarding disappearances and murders and the murder statistics in the United States and whatever they are, you have to remember something. All of the people who are listed on NamUs are not in the murder statistics for the United States. Got to remember that. So even at that level, disappearances and murders are two separate categories. They are. Now, we know a lot of disappearances are murders, but they aren't considered to be that until you actually find a body and actually it's proven that person was murdered. Like Janelle Matthews. She was a missing person. She was not in the murder statistics. Then they found her in 2019, found out she had a bullet hole in her head, and then she became part of the murder statistics. Very important. So going back to Brianna for a moment, why would somebody abduct her? If this is, once again, whether you believe that it had to do with some serial killer or revenge or anything else, why, if this was really something, wouldn't it have just been easier to leave her body wherever her car was or something else or whatever else? Would that not have been easier? We know it's easier. We know it's easier. There's no question about that. And so we also have to then go back to, well, why do people make others disappear? What's the difference between a murder where the body is left behind? We know the person's dead. We know the method of death, strangulation, stabbing, shooting, and then a disappearance. Why do people choose to leave bodies behind while other people choose to take those people or hide those people? This is a very underrated part of understanding what we do here at Unfound. And for some reason, it just kind of, it just really, really popped back into my head when I remembered whatever happened with that case. That girl got shot. Because obviously this person's gotten away with this for 6 years. And unfortunately, pretty easy to do. I mean, it's a tough shot in the dark, moving cars. Don't get me wrong. As a gun owner who goes to shoot, that's a tough shot. But, you pull the trigger enough times, you're bound to hit something. So you may be right about that. Hazel says, without a body evidence, it's harder to prosecute. It's true. But Hazel, on the other hand, do you know what the solution rate of murders is in the United States? It's horrible. Even though we have DNA and all the scientific stuff here in the 21st century, the closure rate on murders in the United States is lower than it was 50 years ago. So this is something to think about when, once again, going back to Brianna Maitland's disappearance. It very well may be that if we believe there was an abduction, it might have been rape. Very possible. But man, that sounds like the most difficult way to ever abduct and rape a person in the history of the world, pulling them over to the side of the road and leaving their car up against the house. That seems so complicated to me. And this is why we have to, I think, continue, and maybe I need to do it, remind everybody, murders are different from disappearances. By the way we should look at them, and even from the way we classify them, even in the United States. So, Ed, I missed what you were saying about Jason Zolkowski. Well, sorry about that. I can't go back now, Charlotte. You'll have to go back there. Could it be wrong place, wrong time, someone randomly playing with a gun? It could be. It very well could be, Hazel. The issue, though, is then why don't they have more of those kinds of instances in the Atlanta area? Ellie, my city has an unsolved murder similar to Kelsey's. It's so haunting. Yeah, it's rare. Oh, and a question for some time. Why do you think some missing persons cases receive massive coverage and others, like the one you're talking about now, outside of the blonde, attractive young woman reason? I'll try to get to that before we are done, Olden. Amy, interesting point. Hazel, without body, it's maybe possible. Glenn, situations where the murderer may not have intended to kill, but things got out of hand, and they don't want anyone to find the body. Hazel, well, if that's that, I was thinking there'd be more successful prosecutions in their states. They're not. The resolution rate of murders in the United States is horrible. It's horrible. Like I said, this is what we talk about, perception versus reality. Perception, we got video cameras, we got social media, we got phones, we got DNA and everything. Man, the closure rate of murders must be 80%. I think in our cities in the United States, I think it's like 30% or something. So if you murder somebody, the odds are pretty good you're going to get away with it. Rockford, we also seen some very unsophisticated people carry out some yet unsolved abductions. For example, the guy who claims he took his wife into the lake and buried her in the mud. Yeah, that was Angie Yarnell, Rockford, for sure. Deborah, even many murders get out of prison way before they should. Drug dealers do almost 85% of their time. Yeah. Yep, Deborah. So this has kind of been on my mind, as I have it written here. Easy to kill someone. It's easy to kill somebody. Easy. a lot harder to make someone disappear. And this is why we always have to think, well, if we believe there was foul play in this disappearance, why wasn't the person the victim left behind? Why wasn't, or also, why wasn't the victim put in a place that's easy to find? Why? We have to ask all those questions to really, really understand the disappearance. Because we have a body of work over here called Murders, where many, 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 many bodies are left behind, and a lot of people get away with them. Remember that. So remember that name, Kelsey Quail. Maybe you want to put that on your list of murders to check every once in a while if you'd like to do so. Because like I said, there's been nothing, and it's still unsolved. There's been nothing reported on her murder since this happened. Very sad. Very sad. All right, let's go to... I'm going to go to Jeff's question next, and I think I'll get, to make sure I don't forget about it, I'm going to do Olden's question as well here. Jeff, has there been any update on Tammy Lynn Leppert, and do you have a hunch on what happened to her? Jeff, to my knowledge, there are no updates. I know this is one of those disappearances. Perception is it's very popular. Why? Well, she's attractive. She was in the movie Scarface. You know, all these things really add. And if you remember, friend of the podcast, Anthony the blogger, was the guest for the episode. I don't think that I've ever, maybe I did. I can't remember. I don't think that I ever did speak to anybody in Tammy's family back at the time, maybe 2017 when that episode came out. To my knowledge, there's no update. It's still unsolved. The only thing I remember is the guy whose name I don't have off the top of my head. I didn't put in my notes. Within the last 3 or 4 years, he got in trouble for something. He's still alive. And he was the guy that she was allegedly going to meet. He said that he dropped her off on some street, never to be seen again. Jeff, I realize that she's gotten a lot of attention, and this is, I got to tell you, this is about one of the most straightforward disappearances I think that Unfound featured. There's no doubt in my mind that guy, I don't have his name here, killed her. I'm under the impression, once again, no facts to support this, but given the way that Tammy Lynn was acting before she went missing, it left me with the impression that she had gotten pregnant and that maybe she was breaking to this guy, and she was breaking the news to him. And of course, he didn't want anything to do with that, and he killed her. That's what I think happened to her. I think this is a very, very straightforward disappearance. Now, where is she? I don't know. I certainly don't believe the story that he dropped her off on some corner or whatever else. So, I realize, she ran off. I realize a lot of things have been said, which she wanted to start a new life. And I hope she did. I hope she did. But when you got a guy, this is one of those, the man said type of disappearances. He says he did something, no proof of that. And it doesn't help that this guy was a horrible guy. Doesn't help. So no updates. And that is my theory. It's not just a hunch. I got to believe that has to be the most popular theory. I'm not always in the minority here with some of my ideas. That one, I think I'm certainly in the majority thinking that guy killed her because I think she was pregnant. No proof of that. Rockford. We've also said, unsophisticated people. Okay. Hazel says, I learned a lot from Unfound. I'm trying to teach and learn at the same time, Hazel. Charlotte says, I just listened to Tammy's episode again a few days ago. I will answer Olden's question so I don't forget. Where is it? Olden asks, this is a question I've been trying to answer since day one of Unfound, Olden. A question for some time. Why do you think some missing persons cases receive massive coverage and others, like the ones you're talking about now, it's still, Olden, it's still very difficult to say. My perception, 7.5 years, 332 or 33 disappearances featured. Of course, some of those were like in an episode, 2 people in an episode. And of course, then we have all the people on Flight 370. We have the Pickering 6, which really raises, then the disappearance numbers go way up of actual disappearances that we featured. But it's a combination of things, Olden. It doesn't necessarily have to be, an attractive one, young woman. There are many attractive young women who've gone missing who have got no coverage. Zero. I mean, we've covered some of those and they got a little articles here and there, but to just say that is a bit simplistic. Yes, you may think, well, Brianna Maitland, you saw her, she's 17. She was an attractive girl. No doubt about that. My perception, though, is it has nothing to do with the way that she looks. It has everything to do with the fact that her car was backed into that house. And I'm willing to believe, Greg, when he got involved, it wasn't that well known. That very well may be. But my perception now is it's so well known because of this. You can't see it because it's blurred out because of the filter I'm using tonight. But the cover of his book, there's a reason Greg put the car up against the house on the cover of his book, because that's how I think people know it. Well, man, that's strange. That's unique. It is. That is certainly unique. That gets people's attention. Brian Schaefer, same thing. Many young men go out to bars and are never seen again, who seemingly leave by themselves. That happens a lot. Then what is it about Brian Schaefer's? Well, he went into this place that has video cameras, but he's never seen walking out. That's why. Has nothing to do with Brian, has nothing to do with his mother dying, has nothing to do with, being in Columbus, Ohio, has nothing to do with anything. That is the point that continues to get people talking and everything. How does somebody go into a place that has video cameras, seen going in, but never going out? And this is what has caused people to think he must be stuck in a wall. He must be stuck here. He must be stuck there. That's why. Jody Husentrut, the reason she got attention, well, it does maybe have more to do with the fact of who she was and what the job she has. She was locally well known. She was a newscaster. Everybody in that area knew her. And then she gets abducted because she was like everybody felt that they knew her. And then she's not around anymore. Mara Murray, my perception, once again, attractive young woman. But once again, I'm not sure it has that much to do with that. I think it has everything to do with the fact that she was driving off to somewhere. She was nowhere near her school. And the big question is, where the heck was she going? My perception. Now, I know these are all white people, but we could talk about, black people too. We could talk, I don't know her name, but my perception is this disappearance, got a lot of attention, and I know they did a series on her disappearance. This was the young black woman who, I forget what city it was, but her car was just found sitting in the middle of an intersection with the door open. Somebody I know is going to look that up. And that's not a disappearance that we've featured on Unfound yet. And, I remember watching, I don't think I watched the whole thing, but I remember maybe she was raised by her grandparents or something, but I remember her parents or whoever it was, her guardians, just totally rejecting the idea that she would ever run off by, on her own. But, so that one, I think that's well known, not because of her race or anything, because she's a female or anything, but because this car was sitting right there in the middle of an intersection with the door open. So I think what I'm saying is there certainly is an idea in the media that certain group gets more attention. But my opinion within the true crime community, it's more along the lines of unusual facts. It doesn't have much to do with the race or the look of the person, attractive or anything else. It all comes down to those unique elements that then people can, discuss, theorize, because that's what a lot of podcasts and YouTube channels are. So that is my answer, Olden. Why some get massive coverage is because they're just unique. Whereas when it comes to more general media coverage, like local media and everything else, it very well could come down to a racial thing or a looks thing, an attraction thing. But within the true crime community, I really don't think it's that. I really don't. Hazel says, I've noticed a few cases of murders on CI where a woman has told her fling that she's pregnant and he did away with her. Well, yeah, that happens. Very dangerous time for women. Is it due more to stranger on stranger murder than we realize? There are no facts that Unfound is collected to think that. No. Rockford, Julie Popovich's murder has basically been forgotten. She was a model murdered in downtown Columbus. Hers was upstaged by Schaefer and LaBute and Tyler Davis. Good. Tyler Davis. What are the odds that some guy's out with his wife and a friend and he goes missing just going out for a walk? There you go. Plus, her father has feet on the ground since day one. Brian Schaefer's as well, and truly mind-boggling. Yeah. All right. I can't recall her name. Yeah. So once again, this is a young black woman. Was it in St. Louis? I forget where. But something was going on. And it seems to me she was very sheltered, young woman. And eventually, her car was kind of found in a bad part of town, just right in the middle of an intersection with a driver's door open. I know somebody is going to maybe look that up. All right. Moving on. I want to talk a little bit about this. And this really comes to me from a comment that was made on the YouTube channel. The young blonde comment was due to public perception. Maybe it's in regards to the lesser attention for the minority missing. Hadn't considered uniqueness. Thank you. Like I said, Olden, it just depends what kind of attention in media you're talking about. I will tell you, that's not to, really well, true crime community, how good they are. They don't care about people's looks and everything. I get it. That's nice. But on the other hand, this desire for uniqueness and this fascination with uniqueness and strangeness and everything is also a flaw in character. This is one of the reasons that I continue to say I talk to everybody. Whereas there are too many other channels and podcasts and everything where the hosts get to pick the cases themselves, that all they do is pick ones with those kinds of elements. Whereas, here at Unfound, we talk, we cover quite a few disappearances where, each missing person is unique, but I don't know how unique the facts are sometimes. Phoenix Colden. Yes, Colden. Coldon. And nobody's familiar with that disappearance, that's the young black woman who went missing and her car was found in the middle of an intersection with the door open in some city. Phoenix Colden. Yeah. So there you go. I want to talk about this for a little bit. And it comes to the idea of common sense. You can find it. I leave most of the comments that are put on YouTube up there. Most of them. Not all. Sometimes I do delete a few, especially if they're critical of the guest. But there was a comment made there about, it's just common sense that Brianna Maitland was abducted. Well, maybe she was abducted. No facts to dispute that. No facts to say it's true. No facts to say it isn't true. But I'm here to urge all of you that I would be very, very, very careful about using common sense when you're thinking about these disappearances. In fact, as you will see in my response, once again, you can go to it after you're done watching the live show tonight, that common sense, in my opinion, is a very, very poor tool when trying to figure out these disappearances. There are just too many disappearances that we've featured, and of course, some 10%, where we know what the resolutions are, that really, I'm not sure, fall into that common sense category. As I post in there, as my response, I asked this person a serious question. Why do you think common sense has anything to do with what we're doing here? We have 4 disappearances on Unfound where people called for rides. 20 minutes later, those rides showed up for those people, and those people weren't there. You think common sense is going to help you figure all that out? It's not. It doesn't make any sense. When was the last time any of you called for a ride and then blew your ride off? I'm not saying it, we all do. We know it's bound to happen maybe once in our lives, but 4, not 1, but 4 of those like that. If you're wondering what those are, Shane Fell, Kevin Newen, Deborah Bowman, Crystal Morrison. Of course, we know what happened to Crystal Morrison. We have a disappearance where a woman who didn't have a boyfriend and didn't have a passport told her daughter that she was flying to Israel to get married. That was Evelyn Piper. You think common sense is really going to help you at all with that? Do you think? Probably not. And I could go on. And of course, in that post, I did go on for quite a bit. I illustrated many disappearances that we featured on Unfound where there's no common sense that can be applied given the facts that are known. And as I realize that we make a lot about common sense, and common sense is lacking in our society and everything today. And I'm perfectly willing to go along with some of that. But we have to also realize that common sense did not build, the world that we have today. You can't common sense yourself to building a bridge. You can't common sense yourself to building a building. You can't common sense yourself to building a car, an airplane. You can't common sense yourself to creating complex electrical grids or anything else. Common sense is not going to help with any of that. And in fact, you're actually going to have to learn something first. You're going to have to do that first. You're going to have to know a little bit about gravity. You're going to have to know a little bit about metallurgy. You're going to have to know a little bit about aerodynamics, and nothing in your common sense that you were born with is going to help you with any of that. You may know about gravity. Yeah, don't jump off a building, but that's about it. So I've noticed that it's become a sticking point for me these days when people say, well, it's just common sense. What we do here at Unfound has nothing to do with common sense. Even when we look at some of these man-said types of disappearances, and we really, 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 really think that these husbands killed their wives and made their bodies disappear, there's no common sense to explain, for example, why Jeff Green told 3 different stories. There's no common sense that's ever going to explain that. And over the course of the last 7 years, and really within the last couple of years, in my, in planning to speak to college students like I have, I've tried to really start whittling this down, honing this down into actually like an educational system because I realized that common sense doesn't work. There's no common sense that could have, although, we may have given what's going on with Adventures with Purpose and everything with cars going missing and their drivers going missing, something like that. But with Esther Westenbarger, at the time, there's no common sense that would ever explain, oh, she took the wrong road and just happened to run into the one retention pond in a 5 square mile area. No common sense is going to figure that out. What will help you come to that conclusion is if you know a lot about disappearances. The general common sense is not going to help you at all. There's no common sense, and this is a very, very sad story. There's no common sense to understand why Devin Bond committed suicide. Went missing, committed suicide, wasn't found for 3 or 4 years or whatever it was. There's no common sense that explains that. And it's to dismiss all of this I think makes it all a bit trivial. So this was it's been something on my mind. I've brought this up before, and my impression, I have to tell you, this is something that's been on my mind well before Unfound ever got started. And really, the ideas of this didn't even have anything to do with true crime or disappearances at all. But I have to tell you, common sense, when people start using it in the way that I often see it used in disappearances, these are just a bunch of people who just don't want to learn anything. I think. They just wanted, this is just so simple. It's just common sense. These are just people who don't want to learn anything. So, like I said, at some point for our existence, it actually takes knowing something to make our lives work. And in fact, I will tell you just my experiences as a human, going to be 54 on August 1st. Best day of the year, by the way. What I think I've learned about life is a lot of it is counterintuitive. Meaning what works is actually the opposite of common sense. That a lot of things that you think are true, actually the opposite is true. The way you think things work actually is the opposite of the way things work. I can't, maybe it's just my experiences in life, but there just seem to be so many things in life that are counterintuitive. The way you think they work is actually the opposite of the way they work and why things get done. So, not a big common sense fan. And let's see here what everybody's saying. I don't see how common sense can be applicable to disappearances by the nature of the act. Glenn, many times people involved in disappearances are impaired or substance abuse or as a combination. It's difficult to put yourself in that position when you don't have those issues. That's right. That's another reason you cannot use common sense. Because a lot of times we're dealing with people, like Glenn is saying, addicts, people with mental health issues, on and on and on. There's no amount of common sense that can help you with any of that. Deborah, you are surely not mentally impaired. Olden says, so true. I'm so disgusted with grown adults stating that a person's words or actions must mean or base it on what they would do or say. Yeah. There's no common, as I've, this is kind of, just go through, realize I know these disappearances better than anybody, even though I know Kathy can go back and find dates and all these things. Kathy's really good at this too. But you go back and start if you can. If your mind, I'm not asking you to go back and listen to all the episodes again. Surely not. But you go back and think about how many disappearances we've featured where the missing people lied before they went missing. It's many, 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 many. How's common sense going to help you with that? You actually, this is what drives me nuts. Especially drove me nuts last week. The disappearances are no different than learning about DNA and forensics and all these things. This is a science. It's based on statistics and looking at prior instances and why they get solved and everything else. And anybody who rejects that is never going to understand disappearances at all. Ever. It's something that needs to be studied. Common sense is not going to help you at all. You just want to listen to the episodes, fine by me. But if you're wanting to learn and everything else, this is something good to learn. This is something that is good to learn. You are going to be smarter than everybody else on this particular topic. I can't help you with anything else. Don't ask me about calculus and all, and everything else. But on this, if you treat disappearances, when you go to the NamUs, the Charlie Project, you listen to Unfound, you go back and go to newspapers.com and on and on and on. If you treat it as a science, as if you were, maybe learning history, people who don't remember history are doomed to repeat it. You're going to get smarter and you're going to understand this stuff a lot better. And the world in this part of your life is going to become a lot clearer. Also, Unfound is dealing with the outliers among the outliers. The vast majority of disappearances are solved within a few hours. True. Many more are resolved in a day, week, month. Very few last a year. Common sense to me is don't play in traffic, etc. Yeah. Hello, Jay. How are you? Good to see you. So it's a flaw. It's a flaw. I hear it and I think of people, oh, that's so simple. These are not simple. If this was simple, we wouldn't have 100. If this was common sense, we wouldn't have 100,000 unsolved disappearances in the United States. If this was all just common sense. If it were. Just kind of on that tonight. All right, let me answer this other question from Glenn before I get into the final part of tonight's live show. Glenn's second question. Thank you for sending a couple questions in tonight, Glenn. How do you think you might approach the podcast if you had been in law enforcement prior to starting Unfound? First of all, I've never been asked this question before. I think it's a fascinating one. First of all, you have to understand something about me. Never would have made a good police officer. I hate wearing uniforms. I really, I've talked about, I don't have, I think, the right personality and everything to do that job. If people, let's put it this way, if you could just go right into being an investigator, then probably be great. But we know with these situations, you have to ride around a patrol car for so many years and that get promoted and all that stuff. That was never going to happen for me. And I give credit to people who've done that. But I have to admit, Glenn, that probably I wouldn't be as much a student, going, I just, kind of learning and stuff has been a topic tonight overall. I probably would not be so inclined to be a student of disappearances and being so open-minded to the possibilities and willing to learn and all of that. Like I said, I know that there are a couple of retired FBI agents and other people who host podcasts, and I understand that they're very popular and everything. I got to tell you, I've watched a couple of them or listened to a couple of them. I really don't know. I really don't know what it brings to the overall topic. Now, granted, I think a lot of those, they're also covering murders and a lot of different things, whereas we just do disappearances here. So that has to be counted in there. But I don't think that I would have come into doing this podcast in such an open-minded way. I think that if I had served however long you got to serve to retire, I guess it depends, 25 years, 30 years or something. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast. I probably, because of ego and everything involved, well, I just was a police officer. I'm going to go on here and tell everybody how it is. And I don't think that's what I do, even after 7.5 years. So I think that my mind would be much closed off. I don't think that if I'd started Unfound as a missing persons podcast back in 2016 as a retired detective, that I would have come up with all these classifications and statistics and going to speak at schools and trying to teach criminal justice majors, just giving them just a little inkling of what's going on out there. I don't think any of that would happen because, unfortunately, even I can admit about myself, I might have thought, you know what? I just did, this for 25 years. I know everything there already is to know. And I know I'm being very harsh on myself on that. But I think, once again, that's the way the human ego is. And I think what's really underrated in all of this is that it's much better to have a passion for something than to have a profession at it. If you have to pick one or the other and really be good at something, probably you're going to be better at it if you have a passion for it, if in contrast to you're just doing it because it pays the bills. I think. And given that I know that I make way less podcasting than as far as money goes, in contrast to what the average Pinellas County deputy makes, this must be a passion for me. Because here's what I think I know. None of those Pinellas County sheriffs or deputies would switch with me if they knew what I was making doing this podcast. They do that because it's a profession. I do this because it's a passion. And I think that's always better. So I think that's I think what I'm saying is, if I'd have started Unfound as a former police officer, I think everything would be worse, to be honest. I think it's a fantastic question, Glenn. Thank you for sending it to me. But to conclude, I think this podcast would be worse. I don't know what to tell you. Just because I don't think that I would come into all of this with such an open mind and a desire and a thirst for knowledge and everything else. That's what I think. Exactly, Deborah, in capital letters. J.O. doing all right, listening to your live stream, been a listener for some time and getting my life back on track as still in your 20s. I wish I was in my 20s? Probably not, Jay, but I don't really look back that much, but going back to my 30s, I would certainly sign up for that again. Jay, not feeling the best tonight, but your show is helping out. I'm try to do my best for the next 15 minutes, Jay. Hazel, people are annoying at the best of times. Police officers have to deal with too many annoying people in the worst of times. That's true. And you're welcome, Glenn. So those are the questions that I received tonight. So let's, what do I want to do here? I want to talk about psychics, while we're on controversial topics and education and everything else. Two sisters in Louisiana turned to a psychic medium in Wisconsin who they claim led them directly to their missing mother's body. Teresa Jones, why did it do that? Teresa Jones, 56, was reported missing on February 2nd, 2023. Ashley Dees, Teresa's oldest daughter, said she spent hours searching for her mother after she went missing. The day after, on February 3rd, the sheriff's office sent out a canine unit to look for her, but had no luck. Imagine. A few days later, I just keep doing that. Ashley and her sister Brittany reached out to a well-known psychic medium in Wisconsin, Carolyn Clapper, who's known for her success in locating missing people. Is she? Because I've never heard of her. It's been a year now since this happened, and she has so much information pertaining to this case. Ashley said Carolyn answered their phone call and gave them her help pro bono. In that 45-minute phone call, she said Carolyn gave her step-by-step instructions guiding her to her mother's body. There would be a log. She kept showing me this pronounced log, a very big log in the woods. Imagine that, a big log in the woods. It wasn't just little twigs and sticks. It was a log, a huge one. You know, you hit this log is basically what you said. You get to this log and my body will be there. There's water. I saw a creek. When Ashley went looking for her mother, she said the psychic accurately described the surrounding area. It's like I envisioned what I had heard on the phone last night, that was the landmark, the log. So immediately got ill, shaky, and sick, started vomiting, Ashley said. Teresa was then found her face down near her home. Ashley said Carolyn also described the position of her mother's body and the condition she was in. So there's a woman deceased face down in the creek nude. All she had on was a top, no undergarments, nude. There was no rape cape, no scraping of the fingernails. I'm bothered by that. Ashley said she told the sheriff's office about Carolyn and how she helped them guide them. She guided them to her mother's body. Even if they don't believe in psychics or they're skeptical, you know, they still follow up on leads. So they'll still question me if I know too much about the case. And they can't really explain how I know the details that I know about a case. It's their job to follow up, Carolyn said. An autopsy was performed the day after Teresa was found. Ashley received a copy of that report weeks later and lined up with what Caroline told them. Teresa's case was closed in August of 2023 and ruled as an accidental drowning with methamphetamine intoxication listed as a contributing factor. Her daughter doesn't believe that's correct. It doesn't line up. It doesn't make sense. And if someone can make it sense, I will sit down and listen. Sheriff said the case was closed due to a lack of new information and leads. The family said the sheriff's office failed to contact the person who claimed to have the most information, the medium Carolyn Clapper. That is a great way to solve the case. Don't look at all the evidence. Don't look at all the testimony. Look at all the things that are happening outside, Lawson said. Ashley said she contacted the sheriff's office many times asking for updates throughout the investigation. According to email records, Captain Mike Bryan responded by telling her repeatedly that there was no information, other cases needed his attention. It's true, and aquatic death investigations are the ones that always get kicked to the back because they're incredibly hard to prove. When asked why this department didn't contact Carolyn Clapper, the sheriff said he didn't believe in psychics and that he previously met with psychics who were wrong. Before Teresa was found, Ashley said Carolyn also predicted details from the pathology and toxicology report that would later turn out to be true. Ashley believes her mother's body was placed in the creek, but she fears her family will never know the truth. You mean the psychic couldn't tell them who did it? So I guess I'm very happy that they found her mother's body, but you know, Ashley just says she thinks her mother's body was put there. Well, it'd be nice if Carolyn Clapper could tell them who did that. As I was I got to ask you a question. Do you really think that you need a psychic to tell you that the woman's body was going to be found in the woods or in a creek? Do you really need a psychic to tell you that? Now, I can't, I'm glad they found her, but as it says in the article, she wasn't that far away from the house. And also this story also proves how unreliable canine units are. Dogs are useless. I mean, I know why they're used and everything, and I love a good puppy just as much as anybody else. I could watch wiener dog funny videos all day, trust me. But for purposes of missing persons cases, totally overrated. But it doesn't take a psychic to know that a woman goes missing and she's going to be found in the woods. And then there happened to be a big log in the woods. Imagine that. Yeah, there's a tree fall in the woods. Did Caroline Clapper hear it fall? This goes back. This kind of is like full circle going back to the beginning of the show tonight when I was asked about Kelly Jolkowski. I don't know if you can, do I have it? I'm going to check and see if I have that on one of my old external hard drives, because being that the Project Jason site is closed now, Kelly did an entire series, like hours-long series on psychic fraudsters and how her family early on in Jason's disappearance got caught up with psychics and everything else. And she did a whole entire recording, hours long. I'm wondering if I downloaded that to one of my hard drives. If I did, I'm going to make it public. I don't think she would mind, even though I haven't talked to her in years. If I can find that, I'm going to post that. So I'm going to put this on my list of things to do probably this weekend. But it didn't take psychics to predict this. And as I've stated before, you should know that, as I've said before, one of my closest friends of all time who I first met at Star Trek, her name is Foster. She is actually a numerologist for famous people. So it's not like I don't know any. It's like I'm totally disconnected from this. One of my closest friends of all time gets paid. It's not her full-time thing, but she gets paid to be a numerologist, which is like, once again, like palm reading, psychics, and all that, to some very famous people. So I know all about it. And she and I we've known each other for, I guess it's be coming up on 24 years now, because I first met her when I started Star Trek, which was I started in May of 2000. And we've been round and round and round for 24 years on the supernatural and psychics and numerology and energy and all of that stuff. Round and round and round. So I speak to all of you knowing somebody who's really into this stuff. I guess, what's interesting to me also is Carolyn's known as she's found many missing people. Who are these people? I mean, who are these other people? I guess she's in Wisconsin. Who are these other missing people that she has found? Who is known? Carolyn Clapper, who is known for her success in locating missing people. Here's what I think I know about Carolyn. We only know about her successes. We don't know if she has any. And we don't know about any of her failures. I think that's what we know about Carolyn. And I realize, well, she's doing it for free and everything else. To me, it doesn't even matter, because the problem is this. When psychics start doing this stuff, what it does then families go to the cops and say, you're going to follow this lead, aren't you? And then it's the police who are put in the very complex position, because the families want everything to be done, even if it comes from a huckster like a psychic. But the police don't want to be put in a position say, no, we're not going to do that. So what's it do? It causes the police to go all over the countryside following visions. And I give all the credit in the world to this sheriff, police chief, or whoever it was, that just says, yeah, we're not going to listen to it because it's crap. Because, yeah, we've talked to them before and they get it all wrong. Thank you for going on the record for that, sheriff. Let me see what everybody's saying here. Hazel says, I'm kind of interested in psychics. Oh, wait. Okay, Hazel. Deborah's saying, bull bleep. Ellie says, and I'm interviewing for a crime data analysis position this week. Unfound has taught me so much about disappearances. You're right about the data. I really appreciate that, Ellie. That's a really nice compliment. Thank you. While accurately describing a wooded area for her next trick, To accurately describe the inside of a McDonald's. Look at you, Rockford. And Deborah says, I disagree about the dogs, but a dog is as good as their handler. I don't know. Deborah, not all. And of course, it just depends. But, how often do we talk about dogs being involved in searches? Quite a bit over the last 7.5 years. Obviously, it didn't work because we were featuring these disappearances that are unsolved. To me, dogs are not scientific. It's not something that is scientific. It is not E equals MC squared. I think it's a guess. I think these dogs are guessing. That's what I think. And I realize, well, they do drugs and everything. You don't want me to get into that either. Maybe I will get into it, even though we're almost done here. I can't help but think the dogs are being used by police to get around search and seizure laws. There, I said it. I can't help but think these dogs are being trained to falsely indicate for drugs just so the police can get in vehicles. There, I said it. And if I think that, because the thing is, you can't cross-examine a dog in court. Man, that's a convenient out for law enforcement, isn't it? Think about it. All right, let's go to Friday's disappearance. We're going to the state of Wisconsin. How many times have we gone there? At least twice. I think David Schrader and Evelyn Hartley. Maybe one more than that. Maybe. We're covering the disappearance of James Lidka, L-I-E-D-T-K-A, who went missing from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, on November 4th of 2018, so 5.5 years ago. And his Aunt Valerie is the guest. Covered a few disappearances like James. Of course, I think probably this is going to be on a lot of people's minds because recently we had the disappearance and death of Riley Strain, young man who went out to a bar, left on his own, ended up in the river deceased. Of course, his family think there's a foul play. I don't know if there are any facts to support that. But James, kind of the same situation in Eau Claire, where he went out in this party bus with people, went into this downtown party area of Eau Claire, and wasn't, I guess, having that great of a time. Mainly, most of the people he didn't know in this group. So he had decided that he was going to walk home, and his walk would take him along a river, and that he would have to cross over a walking bridge to walk home. He was never seen again. And two of the main points you're going to have to think about in this disappearance is that a video camera last showed him walking east of his last location, but his phone pinged last time to the west of that location. And then also you're going to have to examine why the young woman who he knew, who invited him to on this big party bus thing that night, why is it that after this night, she was living with James's sister. This young woman never went back to that place, never lived there, and waited 6 months before she ever got her stuff. All of her possessions that were still left at James' sister's place. So I know what it's going to seem like. And you should know James Lidka, Afghanistan vet, served in Afghanistan. We know went over there. His father was also in the military, by the way. So we have to take that into consideration when looking at James the person. So it's just not maybe as simple as drunk guy goes into the water. We're going to have to take a look at these other items as well. Maybe that, could be clouding the topic. Maybe not. Charlie agrees with me. I think about the drug dogs. I made that chuckle there too. I said it. As good as their handles, exactly. I had my point. As good as their handler. Rockford, wait. Wisconsin, how has Carolyn Clapper not found him already? I don't know. Is she known for doing that? She must be mistaken. Yeah, thank you, Rockford. Deborah, I bet my life my dog could find you if you had snacks of the human kind, guaranteed. Well, when those snacks become illegal, maybe we'll test that, Deborah. Until then, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you for all of your questions and comments. Great chat tonight. And thank you, Glenn and Jeff, for the great questions. And of course, you will just hear me. We did not do video for this interview, just audio for this, for the disappearance of James Lidka. And I guess I gave myself something to do as well. Try to find that psychic presentation that Kelly Jolkowski did like 20 years ago. Put it on my list of things to do. Thank you. Catch you next week. Yeah, you too. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Deborah. Great seeing all of you tonight. I hope you enjoyed this. Please give it the thumbs up. Please consider contributing at Patreon or hit the join button as someone did tonight. Thank you for that. Who was that? I think I got to mention that person before. Where is it? Way up here at the top. Hold on a second. Is this going to allow me to do this? Yeah, Olden, thank you for joining the channel tonight, gifting, I guess, a membership. Thank you for that. And that's all I got. Charlie, say hi to the kids for me. And what do you say we do this all again next week? Good night.